Good evening and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we continue with the conversation between King Nimi and the Yogendras. So King Nimi had, this is a tale being narrated by Narad Muni, and he is describing an ancient conversation in which these highly evolved beings called the Nava Yogendra, 9 Yogendras, had appeared in the court of King Nimi. So King Nimi was this very highly evolved king, and he was performing this sacred ritual in worship of the Supreme Being or God. And during that time, these beings emerged and came there. They weren't wearing any clothes. They were just highly evolved. They were luminous like a light coming in. And they came before the king, and the king had, the first thing he did was, of course, honor them and worship them because of their highly evolved status as spiritual beings. And then he went on to ask them some questions, right? Because that's what you do when you are in the presence of a highly evolved being. You want to honor their presence, but then you want to inquire from them and learn from them so that you too may be able to follow the path. You see, highly evolved beings have existed on this earth since the beginning of time, and they constantly come to remind us of where we're at, get us to wake up from our illusions, and show us the path for liberation. So King Nimi is asking them all about these things, and today he's going to focus on the aspect of how do we get free from the illusions of this world. He wants to learn about Maya, the illusory energy of God. So what does that mean? Well, it's like this. You've heard of the Matrix, right? And in that, they talk about this illusion. And even scientists have been saying it for the longest time, that the world we live in appears solid, it appears to be very real, but in fact it's not. In other words, one could call it a virtual reality. This being the headset, right? The eyes being the cameras, the ears being the microphones, and the mouth being the speaker for that headset. And it is through this, we who are the soul, sitting within this body, this organic robot that we live in, and we think this is me, but it's not. We have had many bodies before. We've come into them life after life. And each time we've thought that that body is me. If there is a dog, the dog thinks this is me. If there's a cat, the cat thinks this is me. If you're a woman, you think this is me. In a woman body, I mean. And if you're in a male body, you think this is me. I'm a man. I'm in all these different ways, we succumb to the illusion that we find ourselves in. So King Nimi is asking, I want to learn about Maya, the illusory energy of God, of Sri Vishnu, which bewilders even great mystics. Think about this. Even great mystics, even highly evolved beings get bewildered by this energy. Because, when we see it, we think it's real. You say, if I can see it, then it's real. And if I can't see it, then it's not real, right? That's what a lot of atheists will say, show me God. Where is God? And only I'll see it, I'll believe it. But that's not true. What you see is actually not true. And that which you do not see is often true. So do not just blindly trust your senses, because your senses do not always tell you the truth. They have a very limited bandwidth of what they can see. I cannot see what is behind me. I cannot see what is even on the side of me until I turn my head. But that's the limitation of the senses. What to say of what's beyond the wall? What to say of what's happening in another house, or what's happening in another country, or even in another person's mind who I'm sitting right next to? I cannot see or know what is going on there. So we are very limited, and yet we think we know so much. But that's our foolishness. So he's asking the question, and in the previous chapter, one of the Yogendras, Havir, He had said, a devotee of Krishna should see the entire universe to be the illusory potency of the Supreme Lord, right? You should see everything around you as part of this illusion. Now, in a sense, it is real. We can't say that it is not real. I mean, there are people who believe Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, which means the entire universe is false, and that only the spiritual reality is true. Brahma Satyam. Satyam means truth. And all of this, the world, is false. Again, that's untrue. It is illusory. That doesn't mean it's untrue. An illusion is still very real. If we stand in the middle of the road, we'll get run over. If we put our hand on a hot fire, we'll get burnt. So it's very real. And at the same time, it's such an incredible illusion that it feels incredibly real. Wouldn't you say that if you were looking at a virtual reality headset and it just felt so real? You'd be, my God, this is amazing. So King Nimi is now pursuing this subject matter by requesting more detailed information. What is this illusion all about? And why does it exist? Why does it have such a hold on us? See, behind all of that is our desire for sense gratification. We want to enjoy. But intelligent people, they study material nature to find out how it works. And then they manipulate the forces of nature in order to maximize their sense gratification. Like, we've tried to create air conditioning so it will make, even if it's hot weather, we'll feel cool. Or if it's cold weather, then we'll feel warm. We're trying to feel pleasant. We're trying to feel good. But everything we do is about that. We don't want to walk 20 miles to get somewhere. We make a car to get there, right? We don't want to have to take a boat or a ship that'll take, well, even that is still something that we create, a technology. But we've created all these technologies, from our cell phones to everything that we have in our world today, just to make life more comfortable, more pleasurable, more enjoyable. That's the ultimate aim of science and technology and medicine and business and finance. Like, why does somebody want money? So they can enjoy more, right? It's all about comfort and enjoyment. And all of us are engaged in this endeavor. Think of the videos you watch on YouTube about how to improve your body, your diet, your finances, your politics. We're trying to understand this world, right? The forces controlling this world, the forces controlling our mind, our intelligence, our senses. But as long, even understanding all of that, we will never be happy or free. The idea is not to understand the world better because we'll become more comfortable or we'll enjoy more. What King Nimi is trying to tell us here is that we need to understand that which is the illusion. Because once we can see through the illusion, the illusory energy or Maya, this is that energy which causes us to become averse to God and to become captivated by the glittering illusions of this world. Think about it. I mean, they're constantly, because we have this weakness, they're constantly trying to sell us on stuff. They're capitalizing on our illusions and wanting to sell us stuff, wanting to get us to buy a house or a car or some clothes or something or other all the time. Technology, phones, this, that. And all of that keeps us trapped here. All of that keeps us hankering for more, desiring more, craving, longing, envying. And the result? Here we are. And we'll continue to be for thousands of lifetimes unless we understand this deep science that they're going to discuss here. So the king is saying, although I am drinking the nectar of your statements about the glories of the Supreme Godhead, my thirst is not yet satiated. Such nectarian descriptions of the Supreme Lord and his devotees are the actual medicine for conditioned souls like me. who are tormented by the threefold miseries of material existence. We've talked about this before, threefold miseries being miseries caused by our own body and mind, miseries caused by other living entities, and miseries caused by nature. So he's putting himself, although he is actually a very highly evolved being himself, the King Nimi, he's putting himself in the same condition as all of us, conditioned souls. And he's asking on our behalf that what is the remedy? How can we become free from suffering? How can we become free of the threefold miseries of material existence? What is the actual medicine that we can take? Yes, he knows this also, that the nectarian topics of the Supreme Lord, of Bhagavan, of Sri Krishna, those are the remedy, but he wants to know more. So then he quotes a particular verse where he says, those who are, well, no, he doesn't quote it, sorry. Let's go back a minute. In the purport it is said that Atma Ramas Chamunayo, this is a verse that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu often quotes, where he says, those who are self-satisfied and unattracted by external material desires are also attracted to the loving service of Sri Krishna, whose qualities are transcendental and whose activities are wonderful. You see, they're saying here that even people who are liberated from this world, people who have no material desires left, people who are self-satisfied. What does that mean? Satisfied within. Atmaram is the word used here. Atmaram. They are completely at peace with themselves. Even those who have become completely free from all suffering, who are liberated, moksha, who have all of that, and who have got no material desires left, even they are attracted to the loving service of Sri Krishna. Why? Because his qualities are transcendental. Transcendental means they transcend this world. They appeal to the soul. They're not qualities that necessarily appeal to the mind or to the body or to the eyes. Of course, they do appeal to all of that as well. But material things appeal to our mind and to our senses. But that which transcends the senses, that is even more beautiful than the most beautiful you have seen, more appealing, that is the transcendental qualities of Sri Krishna. And his activities are wonderful. We've been hearing those activities through the entire 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. And now we've come into the 11th canto, so yes. So the Bhagavatam also says the material medicine, medicine for our material disease, is hearing about these topics. See, it compares it. Material medicine is not desirable once a disease has been cured. Right? When you're healthy, you don't go take the same medicine you took when you were sick. But on the absolute platform, on the spiritual platform, that means the means and the end are not different. Meaning the path and the destination are no different. So in other words, unlike the material world, where the end of your sickness is you're healthy and now you don't need your medicine. The medicine was the path, was the means by which you were going to get better. And the end result was you're going to be healthy. But in the spiritual world, there is non-duality. And non-duality means that the path and the destination are no different. So chanting and hearing the glories of Krishna are both the means and the end of transcendental bliss. In other words, when a person becomes completely free of material suffering and is liberated, he still enjoys the glories of Krishna, even more so, in fact. So here King Nimi says, the intoxicating nectar of your instructions has left me more eager than ever to hear about Sri Krishna. So at this point, one of the Yogendras, his name is Antariksh, and he says, O mighty armed king, by activating the material elements, the primeval soul of all creation has sent forth all living beings in higher and lower species so that those conditioned souls can cultivate either sense gratification or ultimate liberation according to their desire. So what he's saying is that that God, the Supreme Being, activates the material elements at a certain point. and then the creation happens. Okay? Activating the material elements means everything exists for a while in a state of being dormant, being unmanifest. And then as the Supreme Being, as Vishnu, glances upon the material elements, which are in a dormant state, then they start to take shape again. And they again start to create forms and planets and living entities, all under the supervision of Brahma. So the primeval soul of all creation sent forth all living beings in higher and lower species, so that those conditions, so higher and lower species, higher species would be the demigods, then comes the humans, then after that the animals, the birds, and all the way down to the plants and the insects. So higher and lower species. So those conditioned souls can cultivate, and here's the purpose of creating this world, so that we have the opportunity to cultivate either sense gratification or liberation. The animals are all about sense gratification. If you have a dog in the house, all he wants is food and sleep, right? Eating and sleeping. And if there is a way to mate, then we'd love to do that too. And human beings can often be just like an animal, unless they start striving for liberation. And liberation, as you know, is not just about merging into the light. Liberation is not just about going to some heaven. No. Liberation means becoming free from suffering, not in some other world, not in some other dimension, but here and now. What you do not achieve here and now, you will not achieve in any other dimension. That's just a false promise that is being made to you. You need to have the evidence of liberation here and now. Otherwise, there is nothing. If you are still going to leave this world, no matter how blessed you might be, no matter how much mercy you may have upon you, no matter who is the cause of your liberation, the most saintly, the most evolved, the greatest being of all, they may promise you liberation. But if you don't experience it here and now, what evidence do you have that what they're saying is correct or that it is true? So the path of the Bhagavatam gives you a very scientific process by which to be able to reach that liberation, to come to that place. And we're going to learn more about it today. In the purport, it says, the arrangement for sense gratification is ultimately meant to bring the living entities to the single purpose of going back home, back to Godhead. See, we keep on trying to enjoy our senses in this world. We try in so many ways. We try to work hard. We try to achieve things. We try to have things. We buy things. We try in so many ways. We have this partner and that partner and try to enjoy in one way or the other, go on vacation, go here, go there. But we're never satisfied. We're always thinking the next thing is going to do it for me. The next person is going to do it for me. But it never happens. We're never quite content. The wise person is one who understands that none of this is working. And then he begins to inquire, why am I here? What is the purpose of life? What's going on? Who is God? Who am I? Right? And this begins the process of going back to God. So the Yogendra Antariksh continues. He says the super soul, the Paramatma, that's the part of God that is within each of us. There's the soul and then there is the super soul, the Paramatma and the Atma. So the super soul enters the material bodies of the created beings, activates the mind and senses, and thus causes the conditioned soul to approach the three modes of material nature for sense gratification. So in other words, because of the presence of God within each of us, doesn't mean we are God. It simply means he's present as the Paramatma within each of us. He's present in every atom of the creation. He is present in every one. He's present everywhere. And yet we are within his energy. Everything is made of him. But at the same time, he's within each of us. Why is he within each of us? To guide us whenever we're ready. To tell us, hey, go, listen. to what he's talking about. Go and try to cultivate your spiritual life. Go and do the right thing. Most of the time, people don't listen. But the few who do, they begin the journey of becoming free. So he gives you the opportunity to enjoy your senses, but it's the wise people who understand that this isn't working. Then he says, the individual living being, that is the soul, the Atma, the master of the material body, uses his senses which have been activated by the supersoul, the Paramatma, to enjoy sense objects. Thus he misidentifies the created material body with the unborn eternal self. So we are the unborn eternal self. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, never was there a time when I, or God, did not exist, and never was there a time when you shall cease to be. We are all eternal beings. God is eternal. You are eternal. Every one of us. But the problem is that we are thinking that this material body is me, not realizing that this is just the dress I wear. This is the dress I wear. I don't mean the clothes. I mean this body is the dress I wear. the clothes are just a dress upon a dress. But the real self, who is sitting within this body, the real owner of the body, is the soul. So he says, thus he misidentifies the created material body. See, the material body is created, whereas the soul is never created. It is unborn. People say, well, if God created us, then who created God? No, wait a minute. The premise is all wrong. God didn't create us, and God was never created. He is unborn, and so are we. He is eternal, and so are we. But it is this body that is created, and it is this body that is where the soul is now presently housed. So he misidentifies the created material body with the unborn eternal self. See, we become identified with the wrong thing, and thus we become entangled in Maya, or the illusions that are this world. Impelled by deep-rooted material desires. So now it comes down to this, the desires, right? If you want to be free of this world, you have to become free of desires. Completely. Anya abhilashita shunyam. Shunya means zero. Anya means any. Anya abhilasha. Abhilasha is desire. Anya abhilashita shunyam. Even the desire for knowledge, jnana karma, or the desire for action, jnana karmadi anavritam. Then you can begin loving service to God. But till then we can practice, till then we can learn, and then we can begin the journey. And gradually that purification of our desires will take place. It doesn't happen overnight. It may take many years. It may take many lifetimes. But be willing to walk that path, because he will help you along the way. You have support. You have guidance. You will be helped. So he says, impelled by deep-rooted material desires. Impelled means literally dragged, forced. Like we are just being pulled by our desires. It's not that we're in charge. Our desires are in charge. Impelled by deep-rooted material desires, the embodied living entity, the soul, engages his active sense organs in karmic activities. Means all the doing that we do, right? And all that we do produces karma. He then experiences the results of his material actions, right? So you do something, then you experience the results of that. And then he does this by wandering throughout this world in so-called happiness and distress, constantly moving between happiness and distress. If things go my way, I am happy. If things don't go my way, I am unhappy. Constantly working on this. This is the platform we're working on. Happiness and distress, happiness and distress. Back and forth, hot and cold. But Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that happiness and distress are like winter and summer seasons. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So that is the key to beginning spiritual life, learning to tolerate the sufferings of this world. He then says, thus the conditioned living entity is forced to experience repeated birth and death. Impelled by the reactions of his own activities, he wanders helplessly from one inauspicious situation to another, suffering from the moment of creation until the time of cosmic annihilation, meaning for millions of years. We're on this treadmill. Millions and millions of years, literally. Right? From the moment of creation till the time of cosmic annihilation. That will literally take millions of years, trillions of years even. And we're going to be doing this search for sense enjoyment, this search for pleasure, this search again and again, life after life after life after life, as a human, as an animal, as an insect, as a bird, in all different species, and coming back to human again, repeating the cycle of trying to somehow be the master, be the controller, be God, be the enjoyer. God is the enjoyer. He's created everything for his enjoyment. Then we're trying to enjoy and trying to be God. Instead of saying, hey, everything belongs to him. I need to just serve him. And when I serve him, I will also enjoy. I will also be happy. The sage continues. When the annihilation of the material elements is imminent, the Supreme Godhead in his form of eternal time withdraws the manifest cosmos. So there comes a time where everything was manifest, and that's the world we see now with all its planets and universes and everything. And then there comes a time after millions of years, right, where everything becomes unmanifest. The entire universe vanishes into non-manifestation. So he then goes on to describe how the universe is annihilated, and with a terrible drought followed by massive fire and winds that scorch everything in all directions. Then comes massive flooding that submerges the entire universe. And then finally everything becomes unmanifest. In the purport it is said, the Virat Purush, or the universal form, or the universe as some people call it, with its temporary display of forms, qualities, and activities within the material creation, reverts to inert formlessness when the creation is withdrawn. So you see this world around you? It's full of all kinds of wonderful forms. It's got all kinds of, each of those forms has certain qualities. Some things you might call beautiful, some things ordinary, some things ugly maybe. So this display of forms is temporary. If you look at the trees during spring, there's a certain look. During summer, it's another look. During winter, it's a different look. You look at the grass, you look at nature. You look at when the sun rises and the sun sets. Everything is temporary. Everything is constantly changing. So all of these changes then suddenly stop and everything dissolves. The entire creation dissolves and is withdrawn into this, drawn back into God. Mahavishnu inhales and everything is annihilated. Then everything, he breathes out again, everything is created all over again. Therefore, the material universe cannot be accepted as eternal. It is merely the temporary, imaginary resemblance of his personal form within the kingdom of Maya. See, when you understand this point, that everything here is temporary, and the pleasures here are also temporary, and that existence here is also temporary, and everything we have and do is also temporary, then we say, well, what is eternal? How can I reach the eternal place? Because we are eternal beings, and therefore only eternal things will truly satisfy us. Temporary things will not. Temporary things give you temporary pleasure, but eternal things give you eternal pleasure. That's the difference. So the purport says, such arrangements for creation and annihilation, birth and death, do not exist in the eternal spiritual kingdom of God. In the spiritual world, there is no birth or death. There is no creation or annihilation. That's only in the material world. The material world includes this trillions of galaxies, trillions of universes. All of that together is the material world. But the spiritual world is far bigger and vaster than all the material world. In the spiritual world, the varieties of spiritual enjoyment that are enjoyed by the Supreme Lord and his devotees are not hampered by the inferior cycles of birth, of maintenance and destruction found in the material world. So having explained all of this, the great sage Antariksh asks, now what more do you wish to hear? So he wants Nimi to ask the king Nimi to ask the questions. And Nimi, of course, says, oh, great sage, please explain even how a foolish materialist like myself can easily cross over the illusory energy or the illusions of this world, which is always insurmountable to those who are not self-controlled. There's a lot to be unpacked over here. Firstly, you see, Nimi refers to himself as a foolish materialist, though in fact he is not. Although he is a king, he is a very highly intelligent, highly wise, highly detached spiritual being. He understands the philosophy deeply, and you see the quality of his questions. So he says, how can a foolish materialist, putting himself in our position, cross over this illusory energy, overcome this maya, this illusion, which is insurmountable for those who are not self-controlled? Ask yourself, are you self-controlled? I know how much I struggle to control the mind, to control the senses, to control lust and anger and greed. When you have all of that under control, when your desires are under control, when your anger is under control, when your greed is under control, then you will be self-controlled. And then you'll be able to you'll begin the process of getting past the illusion of this world. But if you look at most people who talk about spirituality today, oh, it's all about being able to enjoy the senses. It's all about greed. It's all about lust. It's all about desires. It's all about fulfilling those desires. And they call that spirituality. This is the biggest hoax that has been perpetuated on human beings. It was never thought of in that way, but today that's what it's become. And all over the internet, all over Instagram, all over YouTube, you will find videos of people telling you to manifest your desires. And you can have anything you want. You can be anything you want. You can do anything you want. You're the most amazing person. Yes, they perpetuate the illusion. And by doing that, they are responsible for keeping us stuck in this world. It is only pure saintly beings like the Yogendras here who come to smash the illusion, who come to break our illusion so that we may wake up. So now another one of the Yogendras, his name is Prabuddha. Sri Prabuddha said, accepting the roles of male and female in human society, the conditioned souls unite in sexual relationships. Thus they constantly make material endeavors to eliminate their unhappiness and unlimitedly increase their pleasure. This is what everybody wants, right? Oh, I don't want to be with this person anymore because I'm no longer happy. I'm not satisfied. It doesn't meet my needs. But that's not the goal of life, my dear person. That is not why you're in this relationship. You're in a relationship so that you may advance spiritually, whether you're single or you're in a relationship. The goal of life is not to enjoy your senses and to increase your pleasure and to have more or do more or whatever. It's not. This is not the purpose. He says one should see and observe that these persons who are endeavoring for material happiness, right, that they achieve exactly the opposite result. In other words, their happiness inevitably vanishes. As they grow older, their material discomfort increases. Wealth is a perpetual source of distress. You'd say, what? Wealth is a perpetual source of distress? Yes. See, when someone speaks the truth, it is heavy. It is not light. It is not, he's not mincing words. He's not, tiptoeing around. He's like, say it like it is. Wealth is a perpetual source of distress. Why? Because first you have to work hard to get it, and then you have to work hard to hold on to it, and then you have to make sure that no one else tries to take it from you and that it doesn't get wasted and doesn't get spent. And then, of course, there's the economy going up and down all the time. You want to make sure, where do I invest it? How do I hold on to it? How do I make sure it grows? Wealth is a perpetual source of distress. It is most difficult to acquire, and it is virtual death for the soul. What satisfaction does one actually gain from his wealth? Similarly, how can one gain ultimate or permanent happiness from one's so-called home, children, relatives, and domestic animals, which are all maintained by one's hard-earned money? One cannot find permanent happiness even on the heavenly planets, which one can attain in the next life by ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices. So even if you go to the most beautiful of places, whether that's on this earth or some, as an alien in some other in some other planetary system, even if you go to the most beautiful of places, you will not find permanent happiness there. Even in material heaven, the living entity is disturbed by rivalry with his equals and envy of those superior to him. And since one's residence in heaven is finished with the exhaustion of good karma or pious fruitive activities, the denizens of heaven are afflicted by fear, anticipating the destruction of their heavenly life. You see, how does one go to the heavenly planets? One goes there and one has good karma. Just like how one can come to a place like, say, America or someplace. You think that's a heavenly place, or Switzerland, or whatever in Europe. And how can you go there? Many people who have gained a lot of money, they can say, hey, I've got so many millions of dollars, I'll invest it in your country, and then they'll give you a visa or a passport to be able to live there. Similarly, one can elevate to the heavenly planets, which are basically in other universes, in other galaxies, where people live longer lifetimes and have more pleasures than even on earth, far more pleasures and more enjoyment and more wonderful things. And all that is done through their good karma, their pious karmic activities. So people do good deeds, right? That's what they get. But now once you're there, you're afraid, because at any time your karma will run out and then you'll be back here again. Right? At the same time, even while you are there, you're still not only are you anticipating the end of that existence, but also you have a lot of envy and rivalry and other things that you're going to have to deal with. All those human frailties still remain. So he says, thus they resemble kings who, though enviously admired by ordinary citizens, are constantly harassed by other enemy kings, and who therefore never attain actual happiness. So even a king who's got a huge kingdom, maybe looked up to by his subjects, maybe everyone admires him. Oh, the king is so great. If only I was the king. If only I could have what the king has, I would then be happy. Right? If you think that maybe if you have all the things that the richest person in America has, oh, if I could just have what he has. But he's always worried about his rivals. He's always worried about others who might try to take away his kingdom from him, or the economy, or something else. Or in this case, that is being given enemy kings. And therefore, he's never actually happy. In the purport, it is said, the material body is karma chittaha, the accumulated result of one's previous material activity. So this material body is the accumulated result of one's previous material activities. If your activities were very pious, right? So if it says, if one is awarded a body decorated with beauty, or education, or popularity, or strength, and so on. See, people who are very popular, people who have got a very beautiful body, people who are who are very educated and intelligent, who are very strong. This is all the result of their previous material activities, their good karma. And so, because of that, their standard of material enjoyment is certainly high class. On the other hand, if one is ugly, mentally retarded, crippled, or repulsive to others, there is very little hope for his material happiness. In both cases, however, the situation is flickering and temporary. One who has acquired an attractive body should not rejoice, since death will quickly bring an end to such an intoxicating situation. Similarly, one who has taken birth in an obnoxious situation should not lament, since his suffering is also temporary. In other words, everything in this world is temporary. There is nothing constant, nothing consistent or constant in this world except change, right? You heard that. So it's the same thing here. The beautiful man and the ugly man, or beautiful woman and ugly woman, the rich and the poor, the educated and the foolish should all consider that the only way to become free of all of this duality is to become God conscious or Krishna conscious, so that we may be elevated to our eternal constitutional situation. What is that eternal situation? That we are soul. And what is that constitutional situation? Eternal situation for us is that we may reside in the planets beyond this material universe. Originally, every living entity in every one of us, originally is unimaginably beautiful, intelligent, wealthy, and so strong that his spiritual body lives forever. This is everyone. This is the spiritual nature of every one of us. The eternal nature of every one of us is that we are unimaginably beautiful, intelligent, wealthy, and strong. So strong that our spiritual body lives forever. But we foolishly give up this eternal blissful situation because we are unwilling to meet the condition for eternal life. There is a condition. What is that condition? The condition is that one should be a lover of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. If you are a lover of God, that's all that's being asked. But if you don't want to be with God, if you don't want to love God, then you can be in this world, no problem. You can have whatever you want to have here. You can do whatever you want to do here. And when you're fed up of it all, then you'll begin to ask the questions. Who am I? Who is God? And when you understand who is God and you understand how incredible He is, then you fall in love with Him. See, love can't be forced. Love has to be chosen. Although love of Krishna is the most exquisite ecstasy, surpassing by millions of times the most intense pleasure of the material universe, we foolishly break off our loving affair with the Supreme Lord and artificially try to become independent enjoyers in the material atmosphere of self-delusion and false pride. Oh, just really savor this. Although love of God, love of Krishna is the most exquisite ecstasy, surpassing by millions of times the most intense pleasure of the material universe, we foolishly break off our loving affair with the Supreme Lord and artificially try to become independent enjoyers in the material atmosphere of self-delusion and false pride. Please contemplate this. What have we given up and what have we gained? And was it worth it? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has pointed out that the conditioned souls, being eager to acquire material happiness and avoid distress, take shelter of sexual relationships and thus surrender to the hard labor of karmic activities. Those who are enlightened, however, can perceive the ultimate futility of such gross materialistic endeavors. One's home, children, relatives, bank account, and so on are all temporary phantasmagoria. Fantasy, phantasmagoria. And even while manifest, they can never give real satisfaction to one's senses. To acquire wealth in this world, one is practically forced to become the killer of his own soul. It's not that the soul can be killed, but metaphorically speaking, you act in a way where your soul, you shove it down. You don't want to listen to what it has to say or don't do what it needs. You just do what your senses need. You're just there trying to fulfill your desires. That's it. Whatever my senses want, whatever my mind wants, whatever my ego wants, that's what I'm going to do. So you shove down the voice of your soul and the needs of your soul. And no wonder you feel so empty. So you got to come back home and drink and party and do all these things. He says, there is no possibility of acquiring pleasure from materialistic activities since they are performed with temporary senses in the hot pursuit of temporary sense objects. When the conditioned soul achieves this goal, he becomes proud and brags to others as if his achievements were permanent. But when defeated, he is submerged in lamentation. Such a tendency to consider oneself the doer is a sign of weak intelligence. So we all think we're the doer. I did this. I achieved this. I studied this. I got this job. I attained this promotion, and so on and so forth. But thinking of oneself as the doer is a sign of weak intelligence, since in fact the living entity is merely desiring within the material body. The body itself is moved by the forces of material nature under the control of God. The relationships of master and servant, father and son, husband and wife entail exchanges of well-wishing and service that gives a sense of material gratification, but such ephemeral devotion. So rather, whether it's someone who's serving as a master and servant, or whether it's a father and son, or a husband and wife, or parent and child, gives a sense of material satisfaction, but such ephemeral means temporary, fleeting devotion can never bring about eternal absolute benefit of the soul. By such temporary gratification, the illusion of Maya induces the conditioned soul to wander throughout the material world, pursuing the relative rewards of material nature. So even the rewards of material nature are relative. They're momentarily satisfying, and then we get bored. Now we want the next thing. According to the subtle laws of karma, the living entity achieves happiness in distress. One cannot obtain happiness by force, no matter how strenuously and how long one tries. Therefore, those whose intelligence is uncontaminated should surrender at the lotus feet of Krishna and give up the ludicrous pursuit of permanent material happiness, a pursuit which can be compared to a dog's chasing its tail. All right, so with that, we come to the part where the Yogendras again continue. They're saying here, any person who seriously desires real happiness, now they're giving the actual process, must seek a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of the bona fide guru or spiritual master is that he has realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation. He's deeply understood the significance of these scriptures and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter, and that person should not just know the scriptures, that's not enough, should have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations. Such a person should be understood to be a bona fide spiritual master. So in the purport, this is further clarified. The Bhagavad Gita says, discusses in chapter 7, text 19, about who can be a true spiritual master. And it says, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanamam mam prapadyate vasudevi sarvam miti sa mahatma sudurlabha. That after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna, knowing him to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So this is the first quality, that a person is completely surrendered to Krishna and knows that he is the cause of all causes. Then in the Upadesh Amrita it says, a spiritual master or guru, it gives this qualification. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger. So can tolerate the mind's demands, the actions of anger, the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So these are one must have one's senses be under control. Not that you're constantly indulging them, That doesn't, you can't, such a person cannot be a spiritual master, though they may fake it and fool the world. So Bhagavad Gita also says in chapter 4, text 34, just try to learn the truth. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So only one who has seen the truth, one who has realized it, deeply understood it, not just intellectually, but realize it means to live it. That person can impart spiritual knowledge unto you. That person is self-realized. What is the spiritual master's duty? The duty of the spiritual master is to connect the disciple to Krishna. A scholar or meditator has no potency to connect another living being with Krishna if that scholar or meditator himself is not connected with Krishna. So what you do not have, you cannot give to another. Right? One who has Krishna can give you Krishna, but one who doesn't cannot. The spiritual master gives birth to the disciple by awakening him to spiritual life. A bona fide spiritual master understands that a bona fide disciple understands that his spiritual master is the very basis of his life. So from here, the sage continues, accepting the bona fide spiritual master as one life and soul and worshipable deity, the disciple should learn from him the process of pure devotion. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, the soul of all souls, is inclined to give himself to his pure devotees. Krishna, or God, gives himself to his pure devotees. Therefore, the disciple should learn from the spiritual master to serve the Supreme Godhead without duplicity and in such faithful and favorable way that the Supreme Lord, being satisfied, will give himself to his faithful disciple. A sincere disciple should learn to disassociate the mind from everything material and positively cultivate association with the spiritual master and other saintly devotees. Now, trust me, this doesn't happen in one day or one night or overnight. It happens over a period of time. Right? And so in that process, one begins by inquiry. One begins with one's intelligence. And then gradually, the process, you grow and then you're able to detach from the material things. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens by the mercy of the spiritual master. To serve the spiritual master, the disciple should learn cleanliness, austerity, tolerance, silence, study of the Vedic knowledge, simplicity, celibacy, non-violence, and equanimity in the face of material dualities. There are a lot of very important words here. Cleanliness, which refers to internal and external purity. Of course, external we know is by bathing, but internal means being free of the pollution of false pride and egotism. Austerity, that is to give up the irrational impulses of the mind and to remain fixed in controlling the senses, controlling one's anger. If a human being does not control the impulses of lust, anger, and greed, he loses his power to progress spiritually. One should then also dedicate the fruits of one's works to the Supreme Godhead and to be free of karma. One should chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And follow the regulative principles of civilized life that prohibit illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, without which one will be overwhelmed by the waves of lust and anger, which completely cover one's consciousness. So in this way, they talk about how to be able to engage with the spiritual master. Then one should practice meditation by constantly seeing oneself to be an eternal spirit soul and seeing the Lord to be the absolute controller of everything. One should have firm faith that he will achieve all success in life by following these scriptures that describe the glories of the Supreme Godhead Bhagavan. At the same time, one should avoid blaspheming other scriptures. One should rigidly control his mind, speech, and bodily activities. Always speak the truth and bring the mind and senses under control. One should hear, glorify, and meditate upon the wonderful transcendental activities of the Supreme Godhead, Sri Krishna. And one should become absorbed in talking about and hearing such activities, His holy names, and being inspired, one should perform one's daily activities as an offering to God. In this way, he goes on describing various things that one needs to do and how one should then offer everything you do, immediately offer everything to God, even one's wife, children, home, and very life air, and should offer at the lotus feet of the Supreme Godhead. One who desires his ultimate self-interest should cultivate friendship with those persons who have accepted the Supreme Being as the Lord of their life. So in other words, good association is very important. And by associating with devotees or even pure devotees of the Supreme Lord, one will make great advancement. By practicing devotional service with them, that love of God, that seed of love of God will grow. And then by serving those devotees, by serving them, one progresses spiritually. One should also view the entire universe as paraphernalia for serving God by engaging the objects of the senses. In other words, we desired things in the past for our own enjoyment. Now those very things which we desire, we should offer them to God. These are yours. Thank you so much for giving this to me. Thank you. And please, you enjoy first. When we're eating a meal, we prepare a nice little dish and offer it to Him first. When we move into our house, this is your house. This is your car. This is your everything. I am yours and you are mine. So by engaging the objects of the senses, right, the things we desire in Krishna's service, one automatically becomes detached from them. And as one passes one's days in the association of the Lord's devotees, one's transcendental ecstasy increases more and more. Okay, so then it goes on describing the qualities of those devotees. And then one comes to the point where, being purified of all impediments, the devotees awaken pure love of God within themselves. And even within this world, their now spiritualized bodies exhibit the symptoms of transcendental ecstasies, such as hair standing on end. The devotees sometimes weep loudly, absorbed in thoughts of their infallible. This is tears of joy, tears of ecstasy, absorbed in thought of the infallible Lord. Sometimes they laugh, sometimes they feel great pleasure, and they speak out loud and dance and sing. Such devotees, having transcended material conditioned life, sometimes imitate the Supreme Lord by acting out His pastimes and sometimes achieving His personal audience. Sometimes they are able to see Him and hear Him. They remain peaceful and silent. Thus, learning the science of devotional service and practically engaging in the service of the Lord, the devotee comes to the stage of love of Godhead. And by complete devotion to Krishna, the devotee easily crosses over the illusory energy Maya, which is extremely difficult to cross. So I think with that, we'll come to the last bit, where he's trying to understand, well, who is Supreme Godhead? And then it explains out here that Supreme Godhead is Sri Krishna. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe, yet He has no prior cause. He pervades the various stages of wakefulness, dreaming, and unconscious deep sleep, and also exists beyond them. By entering the body of every living being as the Paramatma, the Supersoul, He enlivens the body, senses, life airs, and mental activities. Thus all the subtle and gross organs of the body begin their functions. There's so much to learn here. I think I'll skip a little further. It goes on to explain that the Supreme Soul is never born and never dies, nor does it grow or decay. And he goes on to describe how we take all these different births and we go through all these different situations. When one seriously engages in the devotional service of God, fixing the Lord's lotus feet within one's heart as the only goal of life, one can destroy the innumerable impure desires lodged within the heart as a result of one's previous karmic activities. When the heart is thus purified, one can directly perceive both the Supreme Lord and oneself as transcendental entities. This is called where you have darshan, where you're able to see within yourself. You can actually see as if with your own eyes. You can see God. Thus one becomes perfect in spiritual understanding through direct experience, just as one can directly experience the sunshine through normal, healthy vision. And then he goes on to say that one who desires to quickly cut the knot of false ego which binds the soul should worship the Supreme Lord Krishna by the regulations found in the Vedic literatures. He basically says that one should become absorbed in the deity form of the Lord in meditating upon himself as the eternal servant of the Lord, and thus perfectly worship the deity, remembering the deity is also situated within his heart. Thus he should take the remnants of the deity's paraphernalia, such as flower garlands, upon his head and respectfully put the deity back in his place, thus concluding the worship. So he talks about how we should then worship the Supreme Godhead through his deity. And this you will find in the temples all over the world. You'll find Krishna temples, and you can go there and worship him there and sing and dance in ecstasy with the devotees. Thus, the worshipper of the Supreme Lord should recognize that the personality of Godhead is all-pervading and worship him through his presence in everything and everyone. In this way, the worshipper will very soon achieve liberation. Jai Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna. So if you have any questions, if there's anything you'd like to ask, please write it down in the text. I'd be happy to answer your questions or in the comments, depending on if you're watching it now or later. Any thoughts, any contemplations? This has been a very intense last couple of episodes with a lot of deep philosophy. I've been only able to read to you part of it, and I hope that you were able to absorb some of this wisdom. All right, with that we'll end, and then I'll see you next week. Hare Krishna.